Okay, quick and easy one today. 5 tips to make your photos and video a little bit more dynamic. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Zach. I'm a photographer and videographer, but more important than that, I'm a husband and a father, and I love taking photos and videos of family life and documenting what, my family is doing. And a lot of the times I like to get a little bit creative with that and try to make my photos and videos a little bit more dynamic than just the boring, stale, stand there and take a photo or hold the camera. And so I'm gonna give you 5 tips that I use to help make my photos stand out a little bit more. So let's get into it with the first one. The first one is simply to introduce motion. So one thing I love about photos is that you're capturing a single moment in time. But I think when you introduce motion into your photos, it kind of feels like you're pausing a movie at a certain spot. It feels like you're interrupting the moment in a good way, right? And you're kind of like stepping into that. So I love seeing motion in photos. I really love seeing the subject still, but like the motion around them, right? So for example, my family was driving down the road back in my hometown and we saw a barge going down the river, and I was able to take the camera and move with the car as we passed it, taking photos of the barge as the subject, and you can see the motion of the road and everything like that. And I just like that. I think it creates a little bit more of a dynamic moment when I look at that photo. This is a stopping this moment in time. And to me, that stands out and that feels inviting to look at. Now, this can be done for a whole multitude of things. It doesn't just have to be barges on a river, but you can do things like with your kids, right? As your kids are running around the yard, move your camera with them so that you're tracking them and then take the photo, get that motion blur, slow your shutter speed down a little bit, allow there to be that motion blur in the background and in the foreground while your kids are still in focus. The next one is vary your angles. Now, typically when taking photos, right, you the go-to is to be eye level with your subject, right? And that's fine, you're gonna get some beautiful shots that way. But try changing things up a little bit and you'll get some even more fun shots. Maybe you can shoot from below or you can shoot from above. You can shoot behind the subject, just change things up, get closer to the subject, get further away from the subject. All these different things are ways that you can change up the photo, and when doing so, you're changing up the perspective. One of my favorite things to do is to take multiple photos of a subject from multiple different angles, multiple different positions, because when I do this, it creates almost more like a story. And I feel like as a viewer, you're invited into that more. It's not just that you're seeing it from one perspective, but you're kind of in the room. Take this photo series of my daughter and my brother-in-law playing chess. I could have just taken one simple photo of them and it would have been beautiful and fine and everything like that. But instead, by moving around and getting multiple shots, getting different angles, I feel like when I look at this, I feel like I can place myself in this memory a little bit more. I can place myself in this moment. So I think if you can move around and get creative with it, change up your angles, change up your shots, you're going to really appreciate that. The next is a frame within a frame. So one of my favorite things is to draw the viewer's eyes into the subject by looking at all the different natural frames that are happening around your subject and then finding a way to capture that. Right, so things like doorways, windows, even just other objects, trees, things like that, that really kind of frame your subject in, are really great at directing people's attention, directing their vision, their eyes to the spot that you want them to see. And this then just adds depth, it increases the intensity and the emotions of the photo, and it just makes it pop. So next time you're taking photos, look for any natural frames that you can set your subject in to compose your shots. Now, along the same lines is the next one. That's the use of leading lines. So leading lines, in the same way that frame within a frame helps direct the viewer's attention to a certain spot, leading lines do the same. And that's when you look around at the natural settings and figure out what are the things that are allowing the eye to look at your subject. These could be things like paths and lines on the road. There's a lot of leading lines that you can utilize in architecture, but even just some simple things like furniture can be a leading line. Whatever it is that directs the viewer's attention to the subject you want, using those leading lines in a smart way will allow you to really bring your photos to life. It really kind of brings clarity to your photos as well. And then the final one is to incorporate layers. So we don't see in 2D, right? We see three-dimensionally. And so in our photos and in our video, think about ways that you can incorporate the same way that we see the world around us into those images. Now, obviously there are 3D videos out there, 3D photos. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is layer in foreground and background around your subject to make the subject pop more and to make the image feel a little bit more like, ooh, I'm there in that moment when I'm looking at it, right? Things like adding simple things like maybe you're shooting through a tree and so you can add the leaves in front of it. Maybe it's even just you've got another person and they're kind of right in front of your camera, you're shooting kind of right past them and you see them as the foreground, your subject in the middle, and then you've got the background behind them. When you add in these different layers, you just give your image so much more depth, and that just creates a more rich and inviting composition. Now, like I said, all these different tips can be used for all different types of photography and videography, whether you're taking photos of your kids and your family or other things that you're passionate about like cars, nature, or whatever that might be. So I hope these tips have helped you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next one.